So now I'm going to talk about how to add insulation to a pre-existing house without using a blower. I'm going to use this fiberglass stuff called apparatus that they sell at Home Depot. It's meant for using with a fancy blower. You can see here, we don't have that fancy blower. All we have is our fancy hands. First thing you do is you punch a hole in the wall. This is a good example of the sort of hole you want to punch. About the size of a 4x4 ceramic tile. The tool you use to do that with is just a simple saw, a pointy tip. You basically jab it into the wall. Sometimes you have to hammer the back of it in order to get it to go in. And then you just saw along this edge. Do the same on this edge here. And the same on this edge here. Then you stick the blade in and it snaps along this back edge. Nice and simple. Make sure to angle your edges outwards so that the piece of sheetrock doesn't get trapped inside the hole. It's a good idea to label them because you're going to end up having a lot of these things. There's some of them over there in the corner over there. There's some more over there. Basically, they're everywhere. Okay, so now you're into the wall and you want to start putting insulation into it. So here's an example stud bay. Can't really see a whole lot in there. It's a good idea to have a flashlight in the mirror to get a better look at what's going on. What you do is you put a piece of cardboard here to make it easy to touch the insulation. This is an example of the sort of cardboard that I've been using. Basically, you just take some thumbtacks, press it against the wall, and then you can stick the thumbtacks against the part that's pressed up against the wall, and you adhere it like so. This is just to make it easier to pick up the insulation and shove it in the hole without dropping down the floor. And the insulation comes like this. It's pretty stiff, and even when you pull it free, it doesn't expand a whole lot. You want to be more aerated than that. Here's a box full of nicely aerated stuff. You can see that it's nice and fluffy and loose, unlike the piece I just pulled free. How are we going to do that? Well, basically just take a power drill, like this one. You get some sort of agitator. I made this one out of a handle for an IKEA thingamajig. Take it, stick it in your pile of unagitated insulation and turn it on. And boom, agitation. Obviously this is a lot more efficient when you have more in the box than I have here. Now you just take your box of insulation, stick it up against the wall close to your hole, reach in and shove it in. And then repeat over and over and over again. It actually doesn't take that long. You need about 5 minutes to fill a bag. You're going to find that this stuff is pretty sticky, and so it will start to form pockets where it's not falling down into the bag. So for that, you need some way to agitate it, get it to pack tight. Pretty much you can use anything. I'm just using this plant holder. It's got a nice long piece here that I can stick in the hole and just shake it around, break stuff up, get it to fall lower. Or you can make some sort of string-based system like this. You stick that in a hole and woohoo! Okay. So as you do that, you'll end up having a pile of insulation. You'll eventually reach the edge of your hole. Now you could sort of fill it in like I've done here, but the problem is it keeps on falling out. So a better strategy I found is to put some regular backing insulation in there. So you take a roll of insulation like we've got there, and you slice it into a piece that's the right size to fit across your hole and up to the closest fire break, which in this case is right here. So you cut a piece that's about that large, and then you cut it in half again so that you can take one piece and shove it in, and then shove another piece in next to it. You can sort of see that process going on here a little bit. So I've got two separate pieces cut right down the middle, and I shove each one in at a time, shove it up in the hole, and you've got yourself insulation that's not going to fall out. Okay? Now you take your pieces of drywall that you saved, and you slap them back in the hole. In order to get them to sit level, it's nice to have a piece of wood like this with some screws in it, and screw the center one into the center of your piece of drywall, get it nice and tight, and then screw that piece into the wall. Makes a nice tight connection. Then you fill in the exposed gaps with something that's really sticky. I'm using tile adhesive. I'm sure that there are better products for this, but spackling wouldn't really count. Spackling would just crack. You need something good and tough. You do that, let it sit, then you can unscrew these things and this will stay in here. And you come back over it with spackling and fill it in the rest of the way. And then you'll have something like this. Notice that it's nice and flat. You know, I can't really see it, but it's nice and flat with the wall. And then I textured it just a little bit. How did I texture it? I just used a sponge. So you just take a sponge like this and basically wipe off the excess spackling and then tap it against the wall. And that's the end. Of course, when I paint over it, there's still going to be a little bit of those seams showing, but not too bad. The whole process is a little labor intensive. If you're a pro, it would probably go a lot faster, especially if you have the right tools. This is basically going to be somewhere between 8 and 16 hours of some total work to finish. But it's really not too bad. It's a hell of a lot cheaper than having a professional do it. These containers of fiberglass are about $30 each, and I'm going to use less than 2 of them to do this entire 10 by 13 room. Of course, it's got a nice big window in it, so it's not as hard as it might be otherwise, but so it goes. Final piece of advice. So these lower bays are easier to get into. When you do the upper bays, it's a bit harder. It's because you have to deal with the fact that you're running into the ceiling. So what I like to do is I like to pull them down closer to the floor, just so you have more working space. This means you'll have to cut a larger piece of this backing stuff to push in there in order to finish the job. But you get pretty good at that, so it's okay. So you can see it when I started off, made my holes a lot closer to the ceiling than I did as I got better at the task. It's a good idea to mark everything out. I mislocated some of my fire breaks, so I had to go into the wall more than once. For instance, you can see it this bay here. You can certainly see this bay here. I had to go into 3 times. That was a waste. All in all, it's not too hard. I recommend it.